Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight on our news.
Residents of the Mud Abaco concerned about where they will live after government tears down structures in this shantytown.
Witnesses say this yellow building is one of two scenes of sexual assaults that have occurred in the inner city. That story straight ahead.
Will the country's Doppler radars be fully functional this hurricane season? The answer straight ahead.
Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina Dragovich. Topping news tonight, as the government moves to rid the country of shanty towns, those who call the Mud in Abaco home aren't too excited. This comes as the head of that island's shanty town eradication committee says they've got more to deal with than they expected. Kyle Joaquin was on the ground and tells us more.
Where would you go if they were to tear it down?
Tear down, but I don't know which way I could go.
This 63-year-old Haitian national has been living in the Mud Abaco for 7 years. As government's July 31st deadline looms for the eviction of all shantytown residents throughout the country, Otillian is like a sitting duck, unable to do anything but wait for whatever happens.
I can say nothing. I can't fuss with government because as be whole, I pay national insurance, pay plenty working payment. I can even afford to pay big rent anymore.
You pay rent for these places here?
No, I mean, I built a little shack I left.
He's just one of the hundreds who call the Mud home. Despite several fires that leave many displaced year after year, these wooden structures still remain, providing a shelter for folks like Anthony Jeremy, who's been living in the mud for 3 years.
If they're gonna tear it down, so what about those people who live here for more longer than I do, and who got them children who born here, who live in here?
Right.
What they gonna do with them?
This right here is a diesel generator. Take a look at all of the wires. According to authorities, these lines run power through hundreds of homes right here in the mud.
So I can say nothing else. Government won't do something, nothing I could do about that.
You have somewhere else to go?
Yeah,
You do?
I could went some place to live.
Walking through this portion of the mud, you'd see people maneuvering around the charred remains of a recent fire. The structures are basically crammed together, and it's not just convenient for those who live there, as we learned running into this woman. Oh, you don't live here?
No, I don't live there.
You visit and you pass through?
No, I just come get my hair applied.
Government has expressed concern about the unsanitary conditions in which these people live and has formed a shantytown committee with the mission to rid the country of these illegal communities.
Because we need to know what is out there, who is out there. There have been many estimations, I would say, uneducated guess of the number of persons who live within the mud. But we don't know. We simply don't know.
She said they've had discussions with religious leaders in the various communities to discuss the way forward as the deadline looms. Now again, in speaking with the residents here of the Mud in Abaco, they say whenever government decides to tear down these structures, they have no idea where they're going to go, but they have no other choice but to find a new home. Reporting from the Mud in Abaco for our news, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
And bombshell revelations today in the Frank Smith bribery and extortion trial after the prosecution submitted a report from Assistant Commissioner of Police Paul Roll detailing how the investigation was initiated. The defense revealing that a current minister of the government was mentioned in that report. Jasmine Brown was in court and has the details.
The Crown provided the court with Assistant Commissioner of Police Paul Roll's report at the request of the defense. Lead defense attorney Keith Knight QC acknowledged receipt of the report and told Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson Pratt that while it answered some questions, it raised others. Roll, who heads the anti-corruption unit, was first mentioned in the case last November after star witness Barbara Hanna claimed that she only went to the police after she received persistent calls from Assistant Commissioner Roll. Hanna had also indicated that because of pressure, she was there giving evidence against her will that day. Knight also said it indicated Roll was only a link in the chain, as the report stated Roll spoke to several people and mentioned the name of a cabinet minister. Knight told the court that based on what is in the report, they need to understand where the pressure is coming from. He also indicated that the defense may need to call additional witnesses to the stand based on that report. Smith is on trial on charges that he demanded and received monthly payments of $5,000 from Magic Touch Cleaning Company owner Barbara Hanna from April 2016 to April 2017, after he helped her land a $516,000 annual contract to clean the critical care block of Princess Margaret Hospital. The 52-year-old former senator has denied charges of extortion, bribery, and misconduct in public office. The case that was slated to conclude last December has dragged on for months with several extended delays. Today, a second witness took the stand to detail Smith's BTC call logs. Marlon Gary Smith, who was BTC's manager of internal investigations and fraud, testified about calls placed from Smith's cell phone during the time prosecutors alleged the bribery was taking place. The matter is now set to resume on Thursday morning, with the former BTC manager continuing his testimony. Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
As police investigate the circumstances surrounding 2 incidents of sexual assaults involving minors, the grandfather of one of those victims is speaking out. Jared Higgs reports.
Then you all get him. They can put him up in prison to eat. He need to be hanged, man. He need to be hanged. That's bad.
2 sexual assaults involving minors infuriating the wider Angleton community. According to police, the first incident took place on Bahama Avenue on April 28th, and the other occurred on Monday near Stephen Dillett Primary School. Over on Bahama Avenue, our news spoke with the first victim's grandfather, who described the terrifying ordeal.
My granddaughter and the neighbor children was outside playing, and this man, or beast, whatever you call him, he grabbed her and carried behind the building, in the back of the building. But he didn't penetrate her. He pulled down her underwear, and somehow somebody must have come and he ran and leave her. And she come inside screaming, I understand.
The grandfather echoed the calls from many in the community, insisting that a death penalty was appropriate for the culprit.
I think they should lynch them. That's the best remedy for them. Kill them slow. Because you ruining little children's lives.
Living nearby is Henry Claude St-Hill and his 4 young children. He says his kids know the young victim, and ever since the incident, he hasn't been taking any chances.
I just come pick up my kids right now from school there in EP Roberts. That's why I make sure I carry them and I go look for them, bring them home safely. And I don't let them work like that to neighbors like that.
Man, I dropped this morning. I didn't even heard about it until when I get up this morning. I could have fallen out.
Yes, but they get little children. They get just raped one across the road. We ain't know if that could be the same individual. You know what I mean? But we want to catch the person.
Now here on Darling Street is where witnesses say the second incident took place. They say it took place right here inside this yellow building. Now, of course, parents were lined up outside the Stephen Dillett Primary School this afternoon, many of them discussing the issue passionately with each other.
But also, you still can't put all the blame on the teachers, because they only responsible for them children from 9 to 3. If they hold the child in for detention, a concerned parent, at a certain time you don't see your child, a concerned parent should at least come and check up.
Not just lock them up, but I feel like when you find out that they commit a crime, you know what I mean, and some of them need to be hanged, you know, and just instead of just letting them, putting them in jail, get rid of them.
As far as what the suspect or suspects ought to do, the first victim's grandfather says there is only one acceptable course of action.
Turn yourself in. Remember, you have nieces and nephew, and you have a sister, you may have a mother. Turn yourself in. That is wrong what you're doing to little children. You got a little girl in intensive care now, so stop it.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
In other news, the so-called spy bill has lost the support of the opposition Progressive Liberal Party as the government today sought to amend the legislation in its current form. Angleton Member of Parliament Glenys Hanna Martin today chastising the governing party for seeking to pass a piece of legislation that it once fiercely objected to while in opposition.
This legislation predates this administration. It was vigorously opposed by this current administration in opposition. Because instead of its far-reaching and intrusive provisions
The Interception of Communications Bill 2017 was introduced by the Christie-led administration in February 2017. At the time, F&M leader Dr. Hubert Minnis labeled the legislation a spy bill, which he claimed was being rushed before the general election and had more to do with blocking any opposition to this corrupt PLP government than being a useful crime-fighting tool. Today, Hannah Martin said a portion of the bill, which would give the Comptroller of Customs the power to request to listen to the conversations of citizens or non-citizens, was unacceptable to the PLP before and remains unacceptable.
We agreed as a cabinet that we would not advance or extend the power, and that we're very surprised then to see that provision in this particular bill. And so we are unable, it's in here, we are unable to support that.
PLP leader Philip Davis agreed, noting there were provisions that certain powers should only be held by the Commissioner of Police.
The triggering of this act or the Provisions Act, the key to that, the key to the lock of this should be in the hands of the police. Commissioner of Police.
The whole purpose of the legislation is in response to a Privy Council decision which speaks about greater transparency and accountability of listening by the police. And this is not an opportunity to create new avenues for intrusive listening opportunities on the citizens of the country. We are not able to support that particular provision.
The amendments to the bill have been shelved as the legislation remains in committee for further consideration. Well, weeks after the two unions representing staff at Bahamas Power and Light threatened a very dark and hot summer over the company's plan to move ahead with a right-sizing exercise, Works Minister Desmond Bannister announced in Parliament today that the Bahamas Electrical Workers Union and the Bahamas Electrical and Utilities Managerial Union signed an agreement with BPL to facilitate voluntary separation packages.
I want to thank those union presidents and union members, union officers, who saw the importance of this, to give their members the opportunity to be able to select to leave the corporation on very, very favorable terms. And we will speak about those terms at some stage, Mr. Speaker. So this is an entirely voluntary initiative. Nobody is going to be forced to leave BPL.
2 weeks before the start of the hurricane season, just one of the 4 Doppler radars included in a $20 million project is up and running. Met officials today say though the New Providence radar is fully functional, the Abaco radar won't be complete until July. Meanwhile, the installation of the remaining 2 radars is behind schedule. Despite this, Met officials say they're in a state of readiness and forecasters are currently undergoing intense training. Fonique 2 takes a look.
As the hurricane season looms, 2 Finnish experts are in the Bahamas logging in hours of intensive hands-on training with local forecasters on the use of the country's multi-million-dollar Doppler radars.
You can use the tracking tool to track any cells or hurricanes, and also you can put on a cross-section on a particular area, like here.
Meet Rika Pusa, the project manager of the Finnish Meteorological Institute. She and fellow weather expert Harko Ivonen spend 6 hours each day drilling into forecasters the features and benefits of this radar, commissioned at Lynden Pinling International Airport last June.
Here is the iris focus system from Vaisala, and here in the other 3 screens we can see the SmartMet weather forecasting system. So this has several possibilities to visualize the weather. You can visualize observations, you can look at the numerical weather prediction models, satellite images, radar images.
With a near normal hurricane season set to begin in just 2 weeks, Met Department Director Trevor Baston says this state-of-the-art system significantly enhances the quality of weather forecasts.
Without Doppler weather radar, we would have been challenged to see the detail. All of the reds and oranges, they mean the more active weather and or severe weather.
Government dished out $20 million on a 4 radar project. The LPIA radar is fully functional. The Abaco radar is 80% complete, while the remaining 2 radars have yet to be installed. Officials had expected the second Doppler radar to be commissioned in Abaco at the end of last year, the Long Island radar by the June 1st start of this hurricane season, and the Mayaguana radar by the end of this year.
We have not started the installations in Long Island or Mayaguana, though the equipment, the Doppler weather radars, have been delivered and are in containers in Long Island, but not yet for Mayaguana.
Baston says the Abaco radar should be completed by the end of July. The installation of the Long Island radar should begin in August, while Mayaguana radar installation should begin 3 months after that. Though they're currently behind schedule, Baston says,
we are ready, in a state of readiness.
In October 2016, then Minister of Transport and Aviation Glenys Hanna Martin signed a $20 million contract for the manufacturing and installation of 4 Doppler radars to cover all of the islands of the Bahamas with Finnish company Vaisala. Since then, Finnish officials have been in and out of the country guiding forecasters.
I have been very impressed. They have been very motivated and they're very, very skillful.
It's very exciting because this is new stuff that's going to help us to be better forecasters.
Reporting for our News, I'm Veronique Tude.
Still to come on our news, why the PLP believes government is thwarting its call for a select committee on OBAN. Stay with us.